They laughed at the quiet baker at her sister's Newport wedding until the man every powerful family in Boston feared walked through the doors. But before Roman Calder arrived, Harper Quinn was standing alone beside a cake she had spent 61 sleepless hours creating, listening as her sister claimed it came from Paris. The chandeliers glittered. The ocean crashed below the cliffs. 200 guests smiled like cruelty was just another part of the celebration. Maybe you know that feeling, being useful when people need you, invisible when they don't. This story is not just about revenge. It is about the moment a woman stops begging to be seen and starts building a life no one can steal. Stay with me until the end, because Harper's silence is about to become the loudest thing in the room. Like this video and comment where you're watching from. The silence that fell around Roman Calder did not begin under the wedding tent. It began long before he stepped out of that black car. Long before Harper Quinn stood barefoot in the grass with 200 strangers watching her family come apart. It began in a rented kitchen in Providence, Rhode Island at 3:17 in the morning with flour on the floor, sugar in the air, and Harper's hands trembling from exhaustion. The kitchen lights buzzed overhead. Outside the back windows, the city was still asleep, damp streets shining under the weak glow of street lamps. Inside, the industrial oven breathed heat into the room while the refrigerator hummed like an old machine trying to stay alive. Harper stood in front of the wedding cake and held her breath. 6 tiers. Almond sponge brushed with champagne syrup. White chocolate ganache beneath ivory buttercream. Sugar peonies shaped petal by petal until each bloom looked too soft to be edible. Thin vines of edible gold climbed the sides like sunlight caught in lace. She had worked on it for 61 hours. Not all at once, although it felt that way. She had planned for weeks, tested fillings until her tiny apartment smelled like burnt sugar and almonds, remade the top tier 3 times, because Vanessa said the first sketch felt too simple, and spent money she did not have on imported vanilla champagne extract and the exact shade of pearl dust her sister demanded. Now it was finished. Harper stepped back, her spine stiff and aching, her apron dusted white from waist to knee. One curl had escaped her bun and stuck to her cheek. Her fingers were cramped from painting the edges of the final flower, but for a moment none of that mattered. The cake was beautiful. Not fine, not acceptable, not useful. Beautiful. A small smile moved across her mouth before she could stop it. Then the kitchen door opened. The smile vanished. Celeste Quinn entered without knocking, wrapped in a cream wool coat, even though spring had finally softened the Rhode Island air. Her hair was smooth. Her pearls were perfect, and her perfume reached Harper before her voice did. "You're still here." Harper wiped her hands on a towel. "I wanted to make sure the structure held after the final stack." Celeste's eyes moved across the room, taking in the dirty bowls, the cooling racks, the empty butter boxes, the evidence of labor. She looked at the cake last. For one foolish second, Harper waited. Celeste tilted her head. "It photographs well." Harper swallowed. "Yes, I think the natural light at the venue should catch the gold detail. Vanessa wants elegance, not drama." "I know. And the flowers. They're peonies like she requested." I matched them to the bouquet sample. Celeste stepped closer, studying one sugar bloom. She did not touch it. Touching required curiosity, and curiosity about Harper's work had never been one of her mother's habits. "It looks expensive," Celeste said. Harper did not know whether that was praise. "Thank you." Celeste's mouth tightened as if gratitude had arrived overdressed. "Do not make tomorrow complicated." Harper folded the towel in her hands. "I wasn't planning to. You say that, sweetheart, but sometimes you get emotional when you feel overlooked." The words were gentle enough for someone else to mistake them for concern. Harper heard the blade beneath them. "I'll be fine." Celeste turned from the cake to Harper's face. Good. Your sister has been under a terrible amount of pressure. The Whitmores have expectations. Your father has business partners attending. Grant's family has political ties. This is not simply a wedding. It's Vanessa's wedding, Harper said quietly. Celeste looked relieved, as if Harper had finally understood a simple lesson. Exactly. Vanessa's wedding. Harper glanced at the cake. She wanted to say, I know, because I have spent every spare hour making something perfect for her. She wanted to say, I changed the recipe when she changed her mind. I canceled 2 paid orders because she needed another tasting. I walked to work in the rain last week because the money for my bus pass went into the edible gold. Instead, she nodded. Celeste adjusted one pearl earring. The dress is at your apartment. Wear it exactly as given. No alterations, no substitutions. Harper's stomach tightened. What dress? Celeste's expression flickered. The one your sister chose. I thought I was wearing the same gray as the bridesmaids. You're not a bridesmaid. A soft sentence. A clean cut. Harper looked down at her hands. Celeste's voice dropped into that private tone she used when she wanted cruelty to sound like guidance. Vanessa wants the photographs balanced. You understand. Harper did understand. Vanessa wanted her present enough to look like family, but not polished enough to draw the eye. I understand. Celeste touched her shoulder with 2 fingers, not quite affection, not quite command. Try to get some rest. You look worn out. Then she left. The kitchen door swung shut behind her, and Harper stood alone with the cake again. The room felt colder. She reached toward one sugar peony, stopping just before her fingertip touched the petal. It was strange how something made of sugar could look more alive than the people she belonged to. By the time she cleaned the counters, boxed the leftover decorations, checked the refrigeration schedule, and locked the kitchen, the sky over Providence had turned pale blue. Harper drove back to Boston with both hands on the wheel, and the window cracked open, letting the cold morning air slap her awake. Her apartment sat above a closed tailor shop in East Boston, one narrow room with a slanted ceiling and a radiator that hissed like it resented her. The rent was lower than anything else nearby because the building belonged to her father. Every month she paid him. Every month he reminded her the amount was mercy. The garment bag hung from her doorknob. Harper stared at it from the hallway. For a moment she considered walking past it, pretending she had not seen it, stepping into the apartment and closing the door on whatever humiliation waited inside. But the bag was there. Vanessa was inside it. Celeste was inside it. Preston Quinn was inside it with his polished shoes and careful disappointment. Harper unlocked the door and carried the bag in. The dress was silver, but not the soft silver of moonlight or satin. It was the flat, dull silver of cheap wrapping paper. The fabric made a faint scratching sound when Harper lifted it from the hanger. The waist was cut too high. The bodice was too loose. The skirt fell in a stiff shape that made her body look awkward and uncertain. A note was pinned to the front. Wear this. Don't improvise. Don't embarrass me. V. Harper sat on the edge of the bed with the dress across her lap. The room around her was small enough that everything felt close. The rolling rack of work clothes, the stack of recipe notebooks on the floor, the cracked laptop on the table, the framed photo from culinary school she kept face down because she had never finished. She could call Vanessa. She could say no. She could hang up the dress, choose something of her own, walk into that wedding looking like herself. Her phone buzzed before she moved. A message from Vanessa. Mom said she talked to you. Please don't make tomorrow weird. Harper looked at the note again. Don't embarrass me. A memory rose uninvited. She was 14, standing in the Quinn kitchen with a chocolate birthday cake she had made for Vanessa. It leaned a little to one side. The frosting had crumbs in it. She had stayed up late watching online videos and measuring cocoa powder with a soup spoon because Celeste did not like clutter in the kitchen and refused to buy baking tools. Vanessa had taken one look at the cake and laughed. Not a hard laugh. Not a villain's laugh. Something worse. A surprised little sound, bright and careless. "Oh, Harp, that's sweet. We already ordered one." Preston had walked in behind her carrying a sleek white bakery box tied with ribbon. The cake Harper made stayed on the counter until the frosting sagged. No one ate it. The memory passed, but the feeling stayed. Harper hung the silver dress on the closet door and took a shower so hot it left her skin red. She tried to sleep after that, but her mind kept counting things. How many hours the cake had taken, how many dollars remained in her checking account, how many times she had mistaken usefulness for love. At noon, she gave up. The rehearsal brunch was held at a private club near the harbor, a place with white columns, polished floors, and windows facing rows of sailboats. Harper arrived carrying 2 pastry boxes because Vanessa had texted at midnight, asking for a few elegant bites for the girls while we get ready. The hostess looked at Harper's boxes and pointed toward the service entrance. "Oh," Harper said. "I'm with the Quinn party." The hostess glanced at her simple black dress, then at the boxes. "Of course. Through there, please." Harper went through the service hallway. In the dining room, Vanessa sat at the center table in a white silk blouse, laughing with Grant Whitmore's sisters. Grant stood near the windows with his father, both of them tall, blonde, and smooth in the way old money often was. They looked less like people than portraits that had learned to breathe. Vanessa saw Harper and waved her over. "There she is." Harper set the boxes down. One of the bridesmaids smiled. "Are these from that place on Hanover?" Vanessa opened the box before Harper could answer. "No, Harper made them. She does this kind of thing." "This kind of thing." The bridesmaid picked up a pistachio tartlet and took a bite. Her eyes widened. "Wait. This is amazing." Harper looked up. Vanessa's smile tightened. "They're good, right? She's always been creative. Not very practical, but creative." Celeste appeared at Harper's side and pressed 2 fingers against Harper's back, guiding her posture upright as if Harper were still a child slouching through a family photograph. "Stand straight, dear." Harper straightened. Across the room, Preston Quinn was speaking with Senator Whitmore Grant's uncle. Preston had built half his fortune in real estate, the other half in favors no one wrote down. He noticed Harper only when the senator's wife asked whether the Quinns had another daughter. Preston smiled, charming and empty. "Yes, Harper, our younger one. She's still finding her direction. Still finding." At 27, after years of work debt sacrifice and rented kitchens, Harper was still finding. Vanessa was established because she had chosen a rich husband. Harper was drifting because she made things with her hands. The senator's wife gave Harper a kind smile that felt worse than indifference. How lovely. Creative souls often need time. Harper looked at the pastry crumbs on the woman's plate. "Yes," she said. "Sometimes." The brunch stretched for 2 hours. Harper refilled coffee when servers were busy because Celeste gave her a look that meant help. She fixed a torn ribbon on one of the gift baskets. She carried Vanessa's bouquet samples to the car. She stood at the edge of photographs until the photographer lowered his camera and asked if she wanted to step aside so the immediate family could get one clean shot. No one corrected him. By late afternoon, Harper drove back to Providence to check the cake again. The road was wet from a quick spring rain. Traffic dragged along the highway, and every red light felt like another hand pressing down on her chest. In the passenger seat, her phone lit up. Roman called her. The message sat on the screen. "You still making things too beautiful for people who don't deserve them." Harper kept both hands on the wheel. She had met Roman 6 months earlier at a charity gala in Boston, the kind of event where wealthy people paid $10,000 a table to feel generous under chandeliers. Harper had been hired to assist the pastry team. Not as the designer, not as the name on the menu, just extra hands. Near midnight, when the speeches ended and the donors drifted toward their cars, Harper carried trays through the back corridor. She had been awake since dawn. Celeste had attended the gala and spent most of the evening pretending not to know her, except once when she pulled Harper aside to say the dessert table looked crowded and could she make it more tasteful. Harper had gone behind the loading dock afterward and cried where the kitchen staff smoked. That was where Roman found her. He wore a black suit and no expression. She knew his name because everyone in the kitchen knew his name. Roman Calder. A Boston man with money in restaurants, nightclubs, construction shipping, and darker things people only mentioned when doors were closed. Men lowered their voices around him. Women watched him with fear and fascination. Powerful people smiled too quickly when he approached. Harper had wiped her face with the back of her wrist and said, "I'm sorry. I'll move." Roman looked at the empty loading dock. From what? She almost laughed. He picked up the tray she had set on the ground and placed it on a crate. "Who made you cry?" "No one." He studied her for a long second. That answer usually means someone specific. Harper should have walked away. Instead, she said, "My mother asked me to rearrange a table. That made you cry?" she asked. "Like I worked for her." Roman's eyes shifted toward the ballroom doors. "Do you?" Harper shook her head. "No, I'm her daughter." Something cold passed over his face. Not anger, exactly. Recognition. He reached into his jacket, removed a card, and held it out. No flourish, no seduction. Just a card between two people standing under a service light. "If you ever need real help, call me." Harper had stared at the card. "I don't know you." "No." Why offer? Roman's mouth curved barely. "Because I know what it looks like when someone is drowning in plain sight." She had kept the card. She had never used it. Now his message glowed on her phone while rain slid down the windshield. Harper did not reply, but she read it 3 times before the light changed. At the Providence kitchen, the cake was still perfect. She checked the supports. She checked the temperature. She checked the transport boxes and emergency repair kit. She labeled every container in neat black marker. Extra buttercream, gold leaf, peony petals, piping bags, offset spatulas, dowels, gloves. At 9 that night, Vanessa called. Harper answered on speaker while washing bowls. "Did you confirm the cake arrival time?" Vanessa asked. "I'm driving it myself tomorrow morning." A pause. "Yourself?" "Yes, it's safer." Harper. "Please don't show up looking like delivery staff." Harper turned off the faucet. "I'm bringing the cake before I get dressed." "Fine. Just use the side entrance. The photographer is getting venue shots early and I don't want boxes in the background." Harper stared at the sink. "Okay." And Harper. "Yes. Don't mention that you made it unless someone asks directly. It's not that I'm not grateful. It's just that Grant's family is used to a certain level of vendor." Vendor. The word entered quietly and stayed. Harper dried her hands. "You asked me to make it." "I know. And that was generous of me, honestly. I wanted you included." Harper closed her eyes. Vanessa continued, softer now, almost sweet. "Tomorrow is important. For all of us. Please don't need attention at the wrong moment." Harper opened her eyes. The cake stood across the room, glowing beneath the refrigerator lights. "I won't." "Good. Love you." The line went dead before Harper could answer. She stayed in the kitchen until almost midnight, not because there was anything left to do, but because leaving meant tomorrow had begun. The next morning arrived gray and damp. Harper loaded the cake in sections into a refrigerated van rented with the last of her available credit. Her hands moved slowly and carefully. Every tier was secured. Every flower was cushioned. Every tool had its place. During the drive to Newport, the ocean appeared in flashes beyond stone walls and old estates. The road curved along cliffs and manicured lawns. Harper kept her speed low while drivers behind her honked. She ignored them. The Quinn estate sat above the Atlantic like it had grown from the rock itself. White facade, black shutters, long windows facing the water. The lawn had been transformed into a wedding village of silk tents, floral arches, gold chairs, and pathways lined with lanterns. At the service entrance, the wedding planner, a woman named Elise, with a headset and tense eyes, met Harper with 2 assistants. When Harper opened the van, Elise stopped speaking. "Oh my God." Harper braced for disaster. "Is something wrong?" Elise stepped closer to the cake tiers. "You made this." Harper hesitated. The question entered her like sunlight through a closed room. "Yes," she said. "I did." Elise looked at her, truly looked at her. "This is extraordinary." Harper's throat tightened. Before she could answer, Vanessa's voice floated from behind them. "There it is." Harper turned. Vanessa stood in a silk robe with bride embroidered across the back. Her hair was already styled in soft waves. Her face was bare except for moisturizer and privilege. Elise smiled. "Vanessa, this cake is incredible. Your sister was just telling me she made it." Vanessa's eyes flicked to Harper. "Just once." Then she laughed lightly. "Oh, Harper helped coordinate. She's very hands-on." Harper felt the air leave her lungs. Elise's smile faltered. Vanessa moved beside the van and touched the edge of one transport box. "We had a very specific vision. European influence. Very custom." Harper stared at her sister. Vanessa leaned close enough that Elise could not hear. "Not today," she whispered. 2 words. No raised voice. No scene. Just a reminder. Harper stepped back. The assistants carried the cake inside. Harper followed with the repair kit, walking through the service hallway, while Vanessa swept away toward the bridal suite. The ballroom smelled of roses and salt air. Staff moved around her in black uniforms. The cake table stood near the center of the reception tent, beneath hanging flowers and warm lights. When the cake was assembled, even the men setting up the bar stopped to look. Harper adjusted the final peony near the top tier. Her hand shook once. She steadied it. By late morning, the mansion was full of voices. Bridesmaids moved between rooms in matching robes. Hairspray clouded the upstairs hall. Someone opened champagne too early. Someone cried over a missing earring. Vanessa's laughter rose above everything bright and practiced. Harper changed in a small guest bathroom at the end of the hall. The silver dress looked worse in daylight. It pulled strangely at her waist and made her shoulders look narrow. She tried pinning her hair back with trembling fingers. The pins slipped. Her face looked pale. The mirror showed a woman trying to look like she belonged in a room that had already rejected her. Outside the bathroom, 2 bridesmaids paused. "Is Vanessa's sister in there? I think so." "She's kind of sad, isn't she?" A small laugh. Every family has one. Harper kept one hand on the sink until their footsteps faded. She did not cry. Crying made her eyes red, and red eyes invited questions, and questions invited Celeste's whispered correction. She fixed her lipstick instead. Downstairs, Celeste waited near the foyer with a clipboard she did not need. She looked Harper over from head to toe. "The dress is a little tight in the wrong place," she said. Harper's cheeks warmed. "You chose it. Vanessa chose it. I only approved it." Celeste reached forward and smoothed Harper's sleeve. "Try not to stand near the front during photographs. The light there is unforgiving." Harper nodded. Preston entered from the study in a dark suit, speaking into his phone. He ended the call when he saw Celeste kissed her cheek and glanced at Harper. For a second, his eyes paused on her dress. No expression crossed his face. That was somehow worse than criticism. "Ready?" Celeste asked him. Preston checked his watch. "The Whitmores are already at the church." Then he looked at Harper. "Don't be late." Harper almost said, "I have been awake for 2 days, making sure your daughter's wedding is perfect." Instead, she said, "I won't." The ceremony took place at a historic stone church near the water. Guests arrived in dark cars and pale dresses, stepping from the curb as if the world had been polished for their shoes. Harper slipped in near the back. No one saved her a seat. She found one behind a tall arrangement of white hydrangeas that partly blocked her view. It suited her. She could see without being seen. The organ began. Everyone stood. Vanessa appeared at the end of the aisle on Preston's arm. The room changed around her. People smiled with their whole faces. Grant's eyes shone. Celeste dabbed carefully beneath one eye with a lace handkerchief. Preston looked proud in a way Harper had never seen directed at herself. Vanessa moved slowly, perfectly, her gown trailing behind her like sea foam. She looked born to be watched. Harper gripped the edge of the pew. She did not envy the dress. She did not want Grant. She did not want a church filled with people measuring her worth in flowers, money, and names. But she wanted just once to enter a room and not feel like an apology. The vows were elegant. The music was lovely. The kiss drew applause. Harper clapped too. Her palms made no sound in the thunder of everyone else's joy. After the ceremony, guests moved toward the estate for the reception. Harper waited until the crowd thinned before leaving the church. Outside, the wind lifted the hem of her dress and carried the scent of the Atlantic across the stone steps. Her phone buzzed again. Roman. No message this time. Just his name from the old conversation thread sitting there as if he had entered her thoughts without permission. Harper locked the screen. At the estate, the reception had already begun to glow. The tents shimmered against the darkening sky. Waiters moved between guests with trays of champagne. The jazz trio played near the garden fountain. The cake stood beneath its flowers at the center of the tent, perfect and silent. Harper stopped at the edge of the lawn. For a few seconds, she allowed herself to see it the way strangers saw it. A masterpiece. Then a woman in emerald silk stepped beside her. "Isn't it divine?" Harper turned. She recognized the woman vaguely as one of Celeste's charity friends. "Yes," Harper said. "Vanessa told me it came from a Paris atelier. Can you imagine flying a cake overseas?" Harper looked back at the cake. The lie had already begun moving through the party, smooth and graceful, dressed better than the truth. The woman kept talking. "Of course, with the Whitmores involved, everything had to be top shelf. Your sister has exquisite taste." Harper's mouth opened. 2 words waited there. "I made it." They pressed against her teeth. The woman smiled politely, already looking past her toward someone more interesting. Harper closed her mouth. Across the tent, Vanessa lifted a champagne glass and laughed beneath the lights. Harper stepped behind a floral column where the shadows were kinder. The ocean kept crashing below the cliffs, steady and indifferent. Inside the tent, the band changed songs. Guests lifted their glasses, and the cake waited beneath the lights, with Harper's fingerprints hidden under every perfect flower. She stayed near the edge of the reception, close enough to hear the praise and far enough to remain what she had always been in her family's world, present but not included. A server passed with champagne. Harper took one glass just to have something to hold. The bubbles rose in a thin golden line, bright and restless, like they were trying to escape. Across the lawn, Vanessa moved from guest to guest with Grant's hand resting at the small of her back. She looked effortless. Her smile never slipped. Her veil had been removed, leaving diamonds pinned through her dark waves, and every time someone complimented the flowers, the dress, the music, the view. Vanessa accepted it all as if beauty itself had RSVP'd in her name. Harper watched her sister laugh with Grant's mother beside the cake table. Mrs. Whitmore touched one sugar peony with the careful tip of one finger. Vanessa caught her wrist gently. "Careful. They're delicate." Harper almost smiled at that. Vanessa did not know how delicate they were. She had not held her breath shaping each petal. She had not remade the center blooms until dawn because the first ones looked too heavy. She had not stood in a rented kitchen with aching hands and whispered, "Please hold to sugar and wire and buttercream." But Vanessa knew how to protect what she could claim. That had always been her real gift. Harper. Celeste's voice slid in beside her. Harper turned. Her mother stood with a flute of champagne and a smile that did not touch her eyes. "Why are you hiding? I'm not hiding." Celeste gave a soft sigh. "You're standing behind a floral column. I'm trying to stay out of the way. That is not the same as behaving strangely." Harper looked toward the crowd. "I'm fine." Celeste leaned close enough that her perfume folded over the salt air. Fine is what people say when they want attention, but do not want to ask for it. Harper's fingers tightened around the stem of her glass. The old response rose in her throat. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I'll do better." She swallowed it. Celeste studied her face, and for a second something like concern passed through her eyes. It was gone before Harper could trust it. "Your sister is happy," Celeste said. "Let her have that." Harper looked at Vanessa, who was posing near the cake while a photographer crouched low to catch the right angle. "She has everything Harper said." Celeste's mouth tightened. "That kind of bitterness makes you look small." Harper laughed under her breath. It was not a happy sound. Celeste's eyes sharpened. "Excuse me." "Nothing. No, Harper. Say it if you're going to stand there with that look on your face." Harper met her mother's eyes. Her own voice came out quiet. "I said she has everything." Celeste stared at her for one long second, then smiled with all the warmth of polished marble. "Some women know how to receive what life offers. Some keep waiting for the world to rearrange itself around their feelings." Before Harper could answer, the wedding planner tapped the microphone near the bandstand. "If we could have everyone's attention for a moment, the bride and groom are going to say a few words before dinner." Applause rolled through the tent. Celeste's smile returned at once, smooth and public. "Stand somewhere appropriate," she whispered. Then she walked away. Harper stayed where she was. Vanessa stepped onto the small platform beside Grant. The lights caught the beating on her dress. She lifted the microphone, glanced at Grant with a look so tender that several women near the front made soft sounds of admiration. "Thank you all so much for being here," Vanessa said. "Today has been more beautiful than anything I imagined." Her voice trembled just enough to charm the room. Grant squeezed her hand. Vanessa thanked the Whitmores first, then her parents, then the planner, the florist, the musicians, the designer, the church staff, the chef. Harper listened. She hated herself for listening. She told herself not to wait for her name, but her body did it anyway. Her shoulders tightened, her breath held. Her heart leaned forward like a foolish thing. "And of course," Vanessa said, turning slightly toward the cake, "we have to talk about that." The guests laughed warmly and looked toward the cake. Harper felt every face turn in the same direction. Not toward her. Never toward her. Toward the thing she had made. "I have to thank the brilliant pastry artists from Maison Lumière in Paris," Vanessa continued. "They created the most breathtaking wedding cake I have ever seen." Applause rose again. Harper stared at her sister. Maison Lumière did not exist. The name sounded expensive enough for no one to question it. Someone near Harper whispered, "Paris." "I knew it." Vanessa smiled wider. "And I owe a little thanks to Harper, too. My sweet little sister handled the pickup this morning. She's always been good in a crisis, especially when there are boxes involved." The laughter was soft. That made it worse. It was not ugly enough to be challenged. It was the kind of laughter that slipped between people and vanished before anyone had to own it. Harper's face went hot, then cold. Her glass shook once in her hand. Champagne spilled over her fingers. Vanessa's eyes found hers across the tent. For 1 second, the smile changed. It became private. A warning. "Know your place." Harper looked away first. The speeches continued. Grant said something charming. His best man told a story from college. The guests clapped and drank and returned to their conversations, already accepting the lie as part of the evening's elegant architecture. Harper set her glass on the nearest table and stepped toward the mansion. She needed air. She needed a bathroom. She needed any room without music flowers and the bright, unbearable glow of people who knew exactly where they belonged. She had almost reached the side entrance when Preston's voice stopped her. "Harper." She froze. Her father stood near the French doors, one hand in his pocket, his silver hair perfect beneath the outdoor lights. Beside him, two men in dark suits were laughing over cigars. Preston excused himself with a polite smile and came toward her. A word. It was not a request. Harper followed him into the house. The noise of the reception softened behind them as they crossed the marble foyer. Preston led her to the library at the end of the hall, the room he used when he wanted conversations to feel like judgments. Dark shelves, leather chairs, brass lamps, family portraits staring down from the walls. He closed the door. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Harper folded her hands to keep them still. Preston walked to the desk and opened the top drawer. "This should have waited until after the weekend, but your behavior tonight suggests delay would only encourage confusion." Harper stared at him. "My behavior?" He removed a white envelope and held it out. She did not take it at first. His eyes hardened. Harper reached for it. The paper inside was legal, formal, and cold. A notice to vacate, 30 days. Her vision blurred for 1 second. "You're evicting me. I am selling the building. You own 7 buildings. That one no longer serves my interests." Harper looked up slowly. "I live there." Preston sat behind the desk. It made the room feel like a courtroom. "You rent there at a rate no tenant in Boston could expect. I allowed that arrangement because I hoped stability might help you become practical." Harper's pulse thudded in her ears. "I pay every month, below market. You set the rent." "Yes, I did, and I can no longer support the illusion that you are building a future." The words went through her cleanly. She could almost admire how sharp he kept them. "I made Vanessa's cake," she said. Preston's expression did not change. "I know." Harper's breath caught. "You knew?" "Of course I knew. Your mother told me." Harper felt something inside her tilt. "Then why did you let her say it came from Paris?" Preston leaned back. "Because that is the story that suits the room. The story that suits the room. This family is entering a different level tonight. The Whitmores are not impressed by hobby work from a daughter who never finished culinary school." Harper's throat tightened. "That hobby work is what everyone is photographing. And tomorrow no one will care. They will remember the marriage, the families, the connections, not who mixed the frosting." Harper's voice shook. It was not frosting. Preston's mouth turned down, slightly bored by the correction. "You made something useful, Harper. Do not confuse that with achievement." The room went silent around that sentence. Useful, not gifted, not talented, not even hard-working. Useful. Harper looked at the eviction notice in her hands. The paper trembled because her fingers did. "You gave this to me tonight because you wanted me to feel it," she said. Preston's eyes narrowed. "You wanted to remind me that even when I do something well, you can still take something away." He stood. "That is enough." "No," Harper said, and the word surprised them both. It came out small, but it existed. Preston stepped around the desk. "You are tired and emotional. I will excuse this once." Harper laughed once, breathless and broken. "Excuse me." His voice dropped. "Do not mistake my patience for permission." There it was. The language of her childhood. Patience. Permission. Gratitude. Terms that made love sound like a lease agreement. Harper folded the notice and held it against her chest. "I need to leave." You need to return to the reception and behave like a member of this family. I don't think I know how." Preston moved to the door and opened it, then learned quickly. Harper stepped past him into the hall. The house seemed too bright now. Every lamp too golden, every mirror too clear. She walked toward the side entrance, but Celeste appeared from the drawing room as if she had been waiting. Her eyes dropped to the paper. So she knew too. Harper stopped. Celeste's face tightened with annoyance before it softened into something rehearsed. "Oh, Harper. You knew." Celeste lowered her voice. "This is not the time. You knew he was going to do this. Your father has been concerned for months." "Concerned? Do not make that face." Harper stared at her mother. "He gave me an eviction notice at Vanessa's wedding." Celeste stepped closer, blocking the view from the foyer. "He should have waited. I agree with that. But the point stands. The point. You are 27. You cannot keep floating between rented kitchens and part-time work, hoping talent will rescue you from responsibility." Harper felt the words hit the same bruises Preston had already pressed. "I work. You play with sugar. I made the cake everyone out there is praising." Celeste's eyes flickered toward the tent. "And if you insist on saying that out loud, it will sound desperate." Harper went still. Celeste reached for her arm. "Sweetheart, not everyone is meant to shine. Some people are steadier in the background. There is dignity in accepting what you are suited for." Harper looked at her mother's hand on her arm. For years that touch had guided her. "Sit there. Smile now. Not that dress. Lower your voice. Don't make this hard. Apologize to your sister. Your father is tired. Vanessa is sensitive. Be reasonable." Harper pulled away. Celeste blinked. "I'm going outside," Harper said. "Harper." But Harper was already moving. She walked through the side door and into the cold Newport air. The lawn sloped toward the cliffs. Beyond the tents, the ocean rolled black beneath the moon, endless and loud. Harper stood near the shadow of a stone wall and took out her phone. Her hands shook so badly she almost dropped it. She scrolled past Vanessa, past Celeste, past Preston. Roman called her. The name looked impossible on her screen. Dangerous, unreasonable, unthinkable. She remembered his voice at the gala. "If you ever need real help, call me." Harper pressed the call button before fear could talk her out of it. He answered on the second ring. "Harper." She closed her eyes. For one moment, hearing her name without disappointment attached to it nearly broke her. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I shouldn't have called." His voice changed at once, not louder, sharper. "Where are you?" "At my sister's wedding." "Where?" "Newport. My parents' estate." There was a brief silence. She heard movement on his end, a door closing, a man speaking somewhere behind him. "Are you hurt?" Harper looked down at the eviction notice in her hand. "I don't know." Roman breathed once, slow and controlled. "Stay where I can find you. You don't have to come." "Harper." The way he said her name stopped her. Not soft, not cruel. Absolute. "Stay where I can find you." The call ended. Harper lowered the phone. The tent behind her glowed like another world. People danced beneath the lights. Vanessa's laugh rose above the music. Somewhere inside that beautiful noise, her family continued without her. For 20 minutes, nothing happened. Then 30. Harper almost convinced herself he had changed his mind. Maybe traffic held him back. Maybe he had said those words only because powerful men liked sounding decisive. Maybe she had been foolish to call a man whose world she did not understand. Then the music faltered. Not stopped. Faltered. Like the musicians had seen something their hands could not ignore. Conversations thinned. Heads turned toward the long driveway. A valet stepped backward. Someone near the bar whispered a name, and the whisper moved faster than the wind. 3 black SUVs rolled through the estate gates. They did not rush. They did not need to. The first stopped near the tent, then the second, then the third. Men stepped out, dark suits, quiet faces, eyes moving over the crowd with professional calm. Then Roman Calder emerged from the middle car. He wore black, not the decorative black of formal wear, the kind of black that made the night seem borrowed from him. No tie, no visible weapon, no hurry. His gaze moved once across the reception and the room changed shape around it. People stepped aside without being asked. Harper stood frozen near the stone wall. Roman found her immediately. Something in his face shifted when he saw her. It was small enough that no one else might notice. Harper did. He walked toward her through the grass. Every conversation around them died. When he stopped in front of her, he did not look at the dress, the spilled champagne stain near her hip, or the paper crushed in her fist. He looked at her eyes. "Who made you cry?" Harper opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Roman's gaze dropped to the notice in her hand. "May I?" She gave it to him. He read it once. His jaw did not clench. His voice did not rise. That made the anger worse. He turned toward the tent. Preston Quinn. Harper's father stood near the head table, pale but composed. Roman walked forward. Harper followed because standing still felt impossible. Preston stepped down from the platform with the smooth control of a man who had negotiated with governors, judges, and bankers. "Mr. Calder," he said, "I do not believe we have been introduced." Roman stopped a few feet away. "No." The single word emptied the air. Preston's smile thinned. "This is a private family celebration." Roman held up the eviction notice. "You handed your daughter this tonight." A ripple moved through the guests. Celeste appeared beside Preston, face tight with panic. Vanessa stood behind Grant, her hand gripping his sleeve. Preston's voice stayed low. "That is a private matter." Roman looked around the tent. "You humiliated her in public. We can keep the rest public too." Vanessa stepped forward. "Harper, tell him to stop." Harper stared at her sister. Vanessa's eyes were bright with fury and fear. "Tell him," Vanessa said again. Roman did not look at Vanessa. He looked at Harper. He waited. The waiting gave her room. That was worse than being commanded because now the choice belonged to her. Harper felt 200 people watching. Her mother's warning pressed against her ribs. Vanessa's note burned in her memory. Preston's voice echoed in her skull. "You made something useful." Harper inhaled. "I made the cake," she said. Her voice was quiet, but the tent was quieter. Vanessa's face changed. Harper stepped closer to the cake table. "I made every flour by hand. I tested the champagne buttercream 6 times. I drove it here myself this morning. There is no Maison Lumière in Paris. There is only me in a rented kitchen awake for almost 3 days because my sister wanted something perfect." No one moved. Harper looked at Vanessa. "And when people praised it, you lied." Vanessa's mouth opened. "I was trying to protect the tone of the event." "The tone of the event," Harper repeated. Her laugh shook. Preston's voice cut in. "Harper, enough." She turned to him. For the first time in her life, she did not lower her eyes. "No," Celeste whispered. "Don't do this." Harper looked at her mother too. "You all taught me silence was polite. But it was never politeness. It was control." The words came faster now, not smooth, not rehearsed, but alive. "I have spent my whole life being useful when you needed something and invisible when you didn't. I fixed things. I carried things. I stood where you told me to stand. I wore what you told me to wear. I smiled when people forgot my name because it was easier than explaining that my own family forgot me first." A woman near the bar covered her mouth. Grant looked at Vanessa as if seeing a crack in a painting he had just bought. Preston's face reddened. "You are making a scene." Harper's hands stopped shaking. "Yes," she said. "I am." The word scene moved through the tent like a match dropped into dry grass. Harper reached down and slipped off her painful shoes. The grass was cold beneath her bare feet. Vanessa whispered, "Harper, please." There was something real in her voice now. Too late. Harper picked up the shoes with one hand and the eviction notice with the other. "I'm leaving." Preston stepped forward. Roman moved once. Not much. Just enough. Preston stopped. Roman's voice was quiet enough that the people closest had to lean in. "You will not follow her. You will not send your wife. You will not send lawyers. You will not send men who think money makes them brave." Preston's mouth tightened. "You have no authority here." Roman looked at him for a long second. "I brought mine with me." No one laughed. Harper walked toward the driveway. The crowd parted, but she barely saw them. She felt the grass under her feet, the night air in her lungs, the weight of every eye that had ignored her until she became inconvenient. At the car, one of Roman's men opened the door. Harper paused. Across the lawn, the cake still stood beneath the lights. For the first time, it did not look stolen. It looked like evidence. Roman came up beside her. He did not touch her. "Where do you want to go?" Harper looked back once at the mansion, the tent, the glowing world that had taught her to disappear. Then she climbed into the car. "Somewhere they can't make me small." Roman got in beside her. The door closed, shutting out the music, the ocean, and the voices calling her name too late. The car pulled away from the Quinn estate, and Harper held the eviction notice in her lap until Roman gently took it from her fingers and folded it out of sight. The car moved through Newport in near silence, carrying Harper away from the white tents, the ocean cliffs, and the beautiful cake that had finally told the truth without saying a word. She sat with her hands pressed flat against her knees, barefoot silver dress wrinkled around her legs. The leather seat was cool beneath her skin. Outside the tinted window, the mansions slipped past in long shadows, their windows bright with other people's lives. Roman sat beside her, still as stone. He had folded the eviction notice and placed it inside his jacket as if removing it from her hands could remove what it had done to her. It could not. Harper still felt the paper there pressed into her palm, cutting deeper than paper should. For several minutes she did not speak. Neither did he. That was the first mercy. No questions, no lecture, no careful voice telling her she had been brave. Harper did not feel brave. She felt scraped hollow like the version of herself who had walked into that wedding had been left behind on the lawn with her shoes. The road curved toward the bridge. The ocean appeared black beneath the night sky, wide and restless. Harper watched the water until her reflection in the window became too clear to ignore. Her lipstick had faded. Her eyes were swollen. A strand of hair clung to her cheek. She looked like someone who had run from a disaster. Maybe she had. "I ruined her wedding," she said. Roman looked at her reflection, not directly at her. "No." Harper let out a small, broken laugh. "You were there." "I was. Then you saw it. I saw a woman tell the truth in a room built to punish her for it." Harper turned her face toward him. The passing lights carved his features into hard lines. He looked calm, but there was a controlled violence beneath the calm, like a storm locked behind glass. "She's still my sister," Harper whispered. Roman's gaze did not soften, but his voice did. "That does not make her innocent." The words settled between them. Harper looked down at her bare feet. Grass clung to one heel. She rubbed it away with her thumb and felt suddenly absurdly embarrassed. I don't have anywhere to go. Yes, you do. I mean, somewhere that's mine. Roman was quiet for a moment. Tonight you come with me. Tomorrow you decide what mine means. The car crossed into Massachusetts sometime after midnight. Harper lost track of the roads, the dark stretches of highway, the soft glow of gas stations, the way Roman's men followed behind in the other cars, like shadows that knew their place. Boston rose ahead of them in silver and black. The seaport was glass steel and harbor lights. Roman's building stood near the water, tall and severe, with a private entrance and a doorman who looked at Harper's bare feet for half a second before deciding he had seen nothing. The elevator smelled faintly of cedar and expensive soap. Harper stood beside Roman, holding her shoes in one hand. In the mirrored wall, they looked impossible together. He was all control, dark suit, clean lines, quiet danger. She looked like the last guest at a party nobody admitted had gone wrong. When the elevator opened, Roman led her into a penthouse that surprised her. She had imagined something theatrical. Black marble, gold, paintings meant to frighten people. A room designed by a man who wanted everyone to know he could buy anything. Instead, the space was quiet. Wide windows faced the harbor. The city lights trembled on the water. Dark wood floors stretched beneath simple furniture. There were books on one wall, a low fire behind glass, and a kitchen so clean it looked unused except for one coffee mug near the sink. Roman placed his keys in a bowl by the door. Guest room is down the hall. Bathroom is inside. There are clothes in the dresser. They may not fit, but they are clean. Harper stood just inside the entry, afraid to touch anything. I can get a hotel. His eyes moved to her face. Can you? She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her bank account flashed in her mind. The rented van, the ingredients, the kitchen fees, the apartment she had 30 days to leave, the family she had walked away from. Roman did not press the point. Come sit down. I'm not hungry. I did not ask if you were hungry. She looked at him. He moved into the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. When did you last eat? Harper tried to remember. Coffee in the morning, half a pastry scrap before driving the cake, nothing at the reception. Her stomach had been too tight with dread. I don't know. Roman took out eggs, bread butter, and a small container of sliced pears. You do not have to finish it. You don't have to feed me. He looked over his shoulder. I know. The kitchen filled with the soft sound of butter melting in a pan. Harper sat at the island because standing felt too difficult. The marble was cold under her fingertips. She watched Roman cook with a stillness that did not match the task. He cracked eggs one-handed, toasted bread, poured tea into a white cup, and set everything in front of her without ceremony. The food was simple. That almost undid her. At the wedding, there had been oysters, lobster, champagne, 5 kinds of plated courses, and not one thing that felt like it had been meant for her. Here, in the kitchen of a dangerous man, there was toast cut in half and tea cooling beside her hand. Harper took one bite. Her throat tightened. Roman leaned against the far counter, giving her space. She ate slowly at first, then faster when her body remembered it had been starving. He did not watch in a way that made her feel ashamed. His gaze moved to the windows, the harbor, the black water beyond the glass. After a while, Harper said, Why did you come? Roman did not answer right away. I told you to call if you needed help. People say things. I try not to. She looked at him over the rim of the teacup. You barely know me. His mouth curved not quite a smile. I know you made a cake that made half of Newport stop breathing. That's not knowing me. No, he said. It is knowing what you can do when no one is looking. Harper set the cup down. The words touched something raw. When I met you at the gala, Roman continued, you were crying behind a loading dock because your mother spoke to you like staff. Harper looked away. I was tired. You were erased. Her eyes lifted. He held her gaze. I know what that looks like. The fire made a soft sound behind them. Harper wanted to ask who had erased him. She wanted to ask what kind of boy became a man people feared to speak about in public. She wanted to ask why his voice sounded almost personal when he spoke of being unseen. But it was past midnight and her own life had just split open. So she only said, "Thank you for coming." Roman's expression shifted once. You do not have to thank me for believing what I saw. The guest room was at the end of a quiet hallway. Harper found a soft gray shirt and drawstring pants folded in the dresser. She changed out of the silver dress and left it on the floor, because she could not bear to hang it up. In the bathroom mirror, without the dress and pins and forced lipstick, she looked younger. No, not younger. Less armored. She washed her face with shaking hands, then crawled into bed beneath white sheets that smelled like clean cotton. For a long time she stared at the ceiling. Her phone lay on the nightstand. It lit up again and again. Vanessa, Celeste, Preston. Unknown numbers. She turned it face down. Sleep took her without warning. When Harper woke, sunlight was spilling across the floor. For one disoriented second, she did not know the room, the sheets, the quiet. Then memory returned in pieces. Vanessa's microphone, Preston's envelope, Roman's black car, the way the crowd parted. She sat up too fast. Her phone had 46 missed calls and more messages than she could count. The first was from Celeste. Come back before this becomes impossible to fix. Then Vanessa. You humiliated me in front of everyone. Then Preston. You will call me immediately. Then Vanessa again. Do you really think that man cares about you? Harper's thumb hovered over the screen. Her body leaned toward apology out of habit. She could feel the old machinery inside her begin to turn. Explain yourself. Soften the damage. Make them comfortable. Say you were overwhelmed. Say you did not mean it. Say you are sorry. A knock came at the door. Harper turned the phone over. Yes. Roman opened the door only part way. Coffee is ready. So is your choice not to read those. Harper looked at him. He had changed into a black sweater and dark trousers. Without the suit jacket, he looked less like a threat and more like a man who had slept very little. How did you know people like your family do not lose control quietly? She followed him to the kitchen. Coffee waited beside a plate of warm pastries from a bakery she recognized but could rarely afford. Her dress from last night was gone from the floor where she had left it. Harper noticed and stiffened. Roman saw the movement. I had it put in a bag, not thrown away. She nodded, surprised by the care of that distinction. On the island sat a folder. Harper looked at it before she touched the coffee. What is that? An option. That sounds expensive. It is. She stared at him. Roman pushed the folder toward her. Inside was a lease agreement for a small storefront in Boston's North End. Harper knew the street. She had walked past it a dozen times on her way to buy pastry flour from a specialty supplier. Red brick narrow windows, foot traffic from tourists and locals' old apartments above restaurants on every corner. Her eyes moved over the document. 6 months paid, commercial kitchen space, front retail area. Harper's name appeared on the draft. Her heart began to pound. What did you do? I made calls. Roman, you need a place to work that no one can take from you. She stepped back from the island. No. He went still. The word hung there. Harper folded her arms across her chest as if she could hold herself together by force. I cannot go from my father controlling my apartment to you controlling my business. Roman's eyes sharpened, but he did not move closer. Good. Harper blinked. Good. If that thought had not occurred to you, I would worry. This is not funny. I am not laughing. You can't just put my name on a lease and expect me to be grateful. I do not expect gratitude. Then what do you expect? Roman rested one hand on the counter. Your lawyer can review it. If you do not have one, I will give you 3 names and you can choose someone who dislikes me. Put the business entirely in your name. Put repayment terms in writing. Put limits on my involvement. If you want my money to be a loan, it is a loan. If you want it structured as investment, it is investment. If you say no, the folder closes. Harper stared at him. She had prepared herself for persuasion, for charm, for pressure dressed as protection. Not this. Roman's voice lowered. I do not want your obedience, Harper. Her throat tightened. What do you want? To see what you build when no one is standing on your hands. She looked back at the papers. A storefront. A kitchen. Her name. The want rose so fast it scared her. She imagined cream walls, a glass case, sugar flowers beneath soft light. She imagined brides sitting across from her with sketchbooks open. She imagined contracts that said Harper Quinn, not Vanessa, not Maison Lumiere, not the Quinn family, just her. I don't know how to run a business, she said. You can learn. I don't have suppliers. You can find them. I'm scared. I know. That answer was too simple. Harper pressed her fingers to the edge of the folder. I need time. Roman nodded once. Take it. By noon, a woman named Mara Ellis arrived at the penthouse wearing a navy coat red lipstick and the expression of someone who considered nonsense a personal insult. She shook Harper's hand firmly. Roman told me you are brilliant and underprepared. That is workable. Harper almost laughed. Mara spread papers across the island and began asking questions. What did Harper want to sell? Custom orders or daily pastries? Wedding cakes only or celebration cakes too? How many hours could she realistically work? Did she have a license? Did she own her recipes? What equipment was essential? What equipment was ego? Did she understand margins? Did she know the cost of butter by pound? For the first time in years, questions about her future did not sound like accusations. They sounded like tools. Harper answered slowly at first, then with more certainty. Custom cakes. Limited daily pastries. Consultation by appointment. Seasonal flavors. No fake luxury. Real craft. Visible process. Her name on every box. Mara wrote everything down. At one point, Roman left the room to take a call and Harper exhaled. Mara noticed. He frightens you. Harper looked toward the hallway. Yes. Good. He frightens most people for worse reasons. That is not comforting. It was not meant to be. Harper gave her a tired smile. Mara leaned back in her chair. Listen to me. Roman opens doors. He does not make you walk through them. If you build this because he wants it, you fail. If you build it because you would bleed for it, you have a chance. Harper looked at the rough sketch she had made on a napkin. A window. A counter. Her name. I would, she said quietly. Mara heard her. Then we start there. That afternoon, Nico Varela drove Harper back to her old apartment. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and quiet in a way that made elevator music seem loud. He carried collapsed moving boxes under one arm and did not ask questions. The building looked smaller than Harper remembered. Her key stuck in the lock. The hallway smelled like dust and old paint. Inside her apartment held the evidence of a life lived carefully around lack. A narrow bed, a cheap table, baking tools stacked in milk crates, recipe notebooks piled beside the radiator, 2 dresses hanging from a rack, shoes lined beneath them all worn down at the heel. Nico unfolded a box. Tell me what matters. Harper looked around. The answer came easily. My tools, my notebooks, the mixer. The laptop if it survives being moved. He nodded and began packing with surprising care. Harper wrapped piping tips in towels. She placed her notebooks in a box by themselves. Each page held pieces of her life, recipes she had tested after midnight, sketches of cakes she had never been hired to make, notes about flavor pairings, lavender and lemon, brown butter and pear, pistachio and orange blossom. A knock struck the door. Harper froze. Nico looked at her, then moved between her and the entrance. He opened the door only halfway. Celeste stood in the hall. Her coat was buttoned perfectly. Her face was not. "I need to speak with my daughter." Nico's voice stayed polite. "Miss Quinn is packing. This is family business. She does not want company." Celeste's eyes flashed past him toward Harper. "Harper, tell this man to move." Every muscle in Harper's body remembered how to obey. She took one step. Nico did not look back, but his voice lowered enough for only her to hear. "You do not have to." Harper stopped. Celeste saw it. Something hard moved across her face. "You are making a terrible mistake." Harper's hand closed around a recipe notebook. "Maybe." Celeste blinked. Harper stepped where her mother could see her clearly. "But it will be mine." For a moment, Celeste looked almost wounded. Then the mask returned. "That man has poisoned you." "No," Harper said. "He believed me. You should try to understand the difference." Celeste's mouth parted, but no answer came. Nico closed the door gently. Harper stood very still until her mother's footsteps disappeared down the hall. Then she sat on the edge of the bed because her knees stopped trusting her. Nico gave her a moment. After a while, he picked up another box. "Not bad," he said. Harper looked up. For what first time keeping the door closed, she almost smiled. They loaded her life into the back of Nico's SUV in 4 boxes and 1 battered mixer. 4 boxes for 27 years. Harper stood on the sidewalk and looked up at the apartment window. She expected grief. Instead, she felt air moving into a space that had been crowded for too long. By evening, she was standing in front of the North End storefront. The glass was dirty. The old sign from the previous tenant had left a faded rectangle above the door. Inside, the floor was cracked, one wall needed repair, and the back kitchen smelled faintly of rust and lemon cleaner. Roman stood beside her with his hands in his coat pockets. He did not speak. Harper stepped closer to the window and peered in. It was not beautiful. Not yet. But she could see it. A narrow display case along the left wall. Small tables near the window. A consultation desk in the corner. The kitchen cleaned, repaired alive with heat and sugar. Boxes stacked by the door, each one stamped with her name. "Harper Quinn Atelier." She whispered it once, barely audible. Roman heard. "You like it." Harper looked at the scratched glass, the dusty floor, the ruined wall, the space waiting to be claimed. "I'm terrified." Roman's mouth curved. That was not the question. She looked at him then. For the first time since the wedding, her smile came without breaking. "Yes," she said. "I like it." Roman unlocked the door and handed her the key. Harper stared at it in her palm. Small, brass, ordinary. Nothing like a crown, nothing like a rescue. Still, when her fingers closed around it, something inside her stood up straight. Inside the empty shop, her footsteps echoed against the bare walls. Roman remained near the entrance, letting her walk ahead. Harper noticed that too. She moved into the back kitchen and set her hand on the cold steel counter. In her mind, she saw flour dusting the surface. She saw sugar flowers drying on trays. She saw brides leaning over sketches. She saw herself tired, frightened, overworked, and alive. Her phone buzzed. Vanessa. Harper looked at the message. "You really think his money makes you somebody?" The old hurt sparked, then faded. Harper turned the phone off and placed it on the counter. Roman watched her from the doorway. "Trouble?" Harper looked around the broken kitchen at the walls that needed paint, the floor that needed work, the empty space that did not yet know what it was becoming. "No," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it held. Just noise. Outside, Boston moved around them loud and alive. Inside, Harper stood in the first room that had ever waited for her name. For 3 weeks, the noise stayed outside. Harper kept it there by keeping her hands busy. She learned the language of renovation before she learned the language of sleep. Permits, fire inspection, grease trap, electrical load, ventilation clearance, words that sounded hard and practical words that belonged to adults who knew what they were doing. Harper did not feel like one of those adults. Every morning she unlocked the storefront before sunrise and stood in the doorway with coffee in one hand and fear in the other. The North End woke slowly around her. Delivery trucks groaned down narrow streets. Restaurant owners hosed down sidewalks. Old men in dark coats drank espresso outside bakeries that had been there longer than Harper had been alive. Inside her own shop, the walls were stripped bare. The floor was cracked. The kitchen looked wounded. But the key worked in her hand, and that mattered. Mara arrived most days with paperwork, blunt opinions, and a leather planner filled with lists Harper did not ask to see but desperately needed. "You cannot spend $18 on packaging for a $9 pastry," Mara said one morning, holding up a sample box Harper had fallen in love with. "It looks beautiful. It looks bankrupt." Harper sighed and took the box back. Mara softened only slightly. "Beauty is not the problem. Math is the problem. Make the math beautiful too." So Harper learned. She learned which suppliers answered emails and which ones only respected phone calls. She learned which city office needed 2 copies and which needed 3. She learned that a commercial oven could cost more than her entire childhood bedroom furniture. She learned that men who delivered equipment sometimes spoke to Nico instead of her until she stepped between them and said, "The oven goes where I say it goes." Nico looked pleased when she said it. He did not smile often, but his eyes did something close. Roman did not hover. That made him harder to understand. He called some evenings to ask if she had eaten. He stopped by twice with coffee and once with a quiet electrician who fixed a problem no one else wanted to touch. He never told her what color to paint the walls, never corrected her sketches, never asked how much money she had spent unless she brought it up first. Somehow that restraint made him more present. Harper felt him in every door that opened too easily, every supplier suddenly willing to negotiate every inspector who arrived on time and left without making things difficult. His influence moved like smoke, not always visible but impossible to ignore once she noticed it. One night she found him standing outside the front window while she painted the trim. It was almost midnight. She had one knee on a drop cloth and cream paint on her wrist. "You know," she said through the open door, "most people knock." Roman looked at the wet paint. "Most people close before midnight." "I'm not most people." "No," he said, "you are not." The words landed softly. He stepped inside carrying a paper bag that smelled like garlic basil and warm bread. "I brought dinner. I had coffee." "That is not dinner." It was dinner-shaped. "Harper." She turned back to the trim to hide her smile. "You say my name like a warning. I say it like I expect you to listen. That must be frustrating for you." Roman set the bag on the counter. "Increasingly." She laughed before she could stop herself. The sound surprised them both. For 1 second, the empty shop felt less like a risk and more like a room where something living had started to breathe. They ate sitting on overturned paint buckets. Roman in his black coat, Harper in old jeans, and a shirt with paint on the collar. The front window reflected them back 2 strange shapes in an unfinished room. Roman looked around. "You chose well." Harper glanced at the walls. It still looks like a storage closet with delusions. It looks like the beginning of something. She looked down at her takeout container. My father called again today. Roman's face did not change, but the room tightened. What did he say I didn't answer? Good. That shouldn't feel like an achievement. It is. Harper picked at the edge of the container. He left a message. He said I was being influenced. He said I had no idea what kind of man you are. Roman held her gaze. He is not wrong about that. A quiet moved between them. Harper set the container down. Then tell me. His eyes darkened, not with anger, but with something older. Not everything. I didn't ask for everything. No, he said. You asked for enough to decide whether you should run. The honesty stopped her. Outside, a car passed slowly, headlights sliding over the window. Harper took a breath. Should I? Roman leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Yes. Her heart stuttered. But you won't, he said. That sounds arrogant. It is observation. She should have hated that. Instead, she hated that he was right. Roman looked toward the kitchen where the new oven waited under a protective sheet. I have done things that cannot be made clean by explaining them. I have hurt men who hurt people under my protection. I have taken money from men who thought money made them untouchable. I have built my name in rooms where mercy is mistaken for weakness. Harper listened without moving. His voice stayed even. I will not lie to you and turn myself into a misunderstood businessman with a dramatic reputation. That would insult both of us. She whispered, Are you dangerous to me? He answered immediately. No. The speed of it shook her more than hesitation might have. Then he added, But I am dangerous near you. There is a difference, and I know you are smart enough to understand it. Harper looked at him for a long time. The old Harper would have apologized for asking. Harper asked another question. Can you let me decide when I need protection? Roman's jaw tightened once. I can try. That's not a yes. No, he said. It is the truth. A week later, Harper hired Tess Rowe. Tess was 22, sharp-tongued, bright-eyed, and covered in small tattoos she kept trying to hide during the interview. She had worked at 3 cafes, 1 bakery, and a grocery store bakery she described as where pastry goes to die. Harper liked her immediately. Tess looked around the unfinished front room and said, It's going to be pretty. Harper waited for the joke. It did not come. You think so? Yeah. Not rich pretty. Real pretty. That decided it. By the 5th week, the shop looked less like a gamble and more like a place. Cream walls, dark wood shelves, brass lights above the display case, a consultation table near the window. In the kitchen, the new oven gleamed like a promise. Harper spent nights testing recipes: lemon rosemary tarts, brown butter pear cakes, pistachio cream puffs, vanilla bean madeleines, small wedding cake samples with sugar flowers so thin they trembled when she breathed. Tess tasted everything. Mara tasted with a pen in her hand. Nico tasted silently and once ate 4 almond cookies before Harper noticed. Roman tasted last. He never said too much. This one he said one night, pointing to a small white cake layered with black cherry and almond cream. Harper raised an eyebrow. That's all. That is the one people remember. She cut herself a bite. He was right. She hated when he was right. The soft opening happened on a rainy Saturday morning. Harper expected 20 people. By 8:30, a line curled past the window. She stood behind the counter and stared. Tess came up beside her, tying her apron. Boss Harper looked at her. Tess nodded toward the door. You have to unlock it. Harper's hand trembled around the key. Outside, people huddled beneath umbrellas. Some were locals, Some were food people Mara had quietly invited. Some Harper did not recognize at all. Across the street, Roman stood under a black umbrella beside Nico. He did not come in. He only looked at Harper through the glass, waiting. Her choice. Harper unlocked the door. The bell rang for the first time. Warm air rushed out. Rain rushed in. Customers stepped inside, shaking water from their coats, filling the room with voices, movement, hunger. Harper moved on instinct, boxing pastries, answering questions, slicing samples, explaining flavors, smiling when she remembered how. Tess worked beside her like she had been born behind that counter. A woman in a navy raincoat bought a lemon rosemary tart and took one bite near the window. Her face changed. "Oh," she said softly. Harper looked up. The woman pressed 2 fingers to her mouth. "This tastes like spring after a terrible winter." Harper could not speak for a second. Tess leaned close and whispered, "That means she likes it." By noon, the display case was almost empty. By 1, it was bare. Tess slapped both palms on the counter. "We sold out." Harper stared at the empty trays. Sold out. Not rescued, not pitied, not tolerated. Chosen. Applause started from somewhere near the back of the shop. One customer clapped, then another, then the whole room joined in laughing because the moment was awkward and sweet and impossible to stop. Harper stood behind the counter with flour on her sleeve and tears in her eyes. Through the front window, Roman watched. He did not clap. He placed one hand over his heart. That was worse. It reached her from across the street and stayed there. The review came 2 days later. A Boston food writer posted photos of Harper's pastries beneath a headline that made Tess scream so loudly, Harper dropped a tray. Harper Quinn Atelier turned sugar into architecture. Her name was there, in print, attached to her work. Harper sat at the consultation table and read the article twice, then a third time slower. The writer described her cakes as precise without being cold romantic, without being sentimental old-world technique with a modern pulse. Her phone buzzed. "Roman, I told you they would look." Harper smiled before she could stop herself. Then Preston called. The smile faded. She let it ring, then ring again. On the third call, she answered. "Hello?" There was a pause as if Preston had expected voicemail and resented her for being real. "Harper." She stood and walked into the kitchen away from Tess. "What do you want? You have made your point." Harper leaned against the steel counter. "No, Dad. I opened a business. With his money. With my name." His voice cooled. "Do not be naive. Men like Calder do not invest in women like you without expecting something. Women like you." The phrase struck, but it did not sink as deep as it used to. There was less room inside her for his voice now. "What does that mean?" "It means you are being used." Harper looked through the kitchen doorway at the front room where Tess was wiping down the counter and humming off key. "I know what being used feels like." Preston went silent. She continued quieter now. "It feels like spending 61 hours on a cake and being told not to mention it. It feels like paying rent and being called charity. It feels like being invited to a family event only if I agree to disappear inside it." His answer came hard. "You are embarrassing us." "No," Harper said. "I am existing without your permission. You are confusing the two. Calder cannot protect you forever." Harper's grip tightened on the phone. Maybe he meant it as a warning. Maybe as a threat. With Preston, the two often wore the same suit. "I am not as alone as you trained me to be." Then she hung up. Her hands shook afterward, but not from regret. 3 nights later, the front window shattered. Harper found it before dawn. At first, her mind refused to understand the glass on the sidewalk. She stood beneath the street lamp with her keys in her hand while cold air moved through the broken mouth of the shop. Then she saw the brick inside. It had landed near the display case. Tiny shards glittered across the floor. One of the sugar flower samples had fallen from the shelf and cracked apart, white petals scattered like teeth. A note was tied around the brick with black string. Harper stepped over the glass and picked it up. Criminal's pet. Quinn family shame. Go home. The words blurred. Not because she cried. Because for a few seconds rage made the whole room tilt. Tess arrived 10 minutes later and stopped in the doorway. Oh my God. Harper stood in the middle of the broken shop still holding the note. Tess moved toward her. Glass crunched under her shoes. Don't, Harper said automatically. You'll cut yourself. Tess looked at her. Harper. That was when Harper realized she was bleeding. A thin red line crossed her palm where the paper had sliced her. Roman arrived before the police finished taking photos. She had not called him. Nico must have. Roman stepped through the broken doorway and went still. His eyes moved from the glass to the brick, from the note in the officer's hand to Harper's bandaged palm. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Who touched this? He asked. The officer turned. And you are, Roman did not answer. Nico did. The officer's face changed just enough. Harper walked toward Roman before the room could become something she could not control. I called the police. Mara is contacting the insurance company. Tess already found a board-up service. Roman looked at her hand. Who did this? We don't know yet. He turned to Nico. Find out. The words were quiet. Harper felt their meaning hit the floor like a knife. No. Roman looked back at her. Everyone else became very interested in not breathing. Harper stepped closer. No, she said again. His eyes narrowed. Someone attacked your business. I know. I'm standing in it. They threatened you. They threw a brick through a window. That is where it started. His voice had gone cold enough to frighten her. Harper lowered hers. I know what you are thinking. No, you do not. Yes, I do. You want a name. Then you want a room with that person in it. Then you want them afraid enough to make you feel like this cannot happen again. Roman's jaw moved once. Harper's voice shook, but she kept going. I am not a territory you defend with blood. His eyes flashed. You think that is what this is? I think you care. I think you are angry. I think when you are angry, people get hurt. Silence pressed against the broken walls. Tess stood behind the counter, eyes wide. Nico watched Roman carefully. Even the officer seemed to understand he was standing near something loaded. Roman stepped closer until only a few inches separated them. His voice dropped. You asked me if I could let you decide when you need protection. Harper held his gaze. Yes, I am trying. I know. This is me trying badly. Her chest tightened. Then try better. For a long moment, Roman said nothing. Then he turned to Nico. Security footage, street cameras, names. No one touches anyone. Nico nodded once. Roman looked back at Harper. Is that acceptable? Harper exhaled. For now. The board-up crew arrived within the hour. By opening time, plywood covered the broken window. Tess stood outside with a paintbrush and a paper cup of black paint. What are you doing? Harper asked. Tess did not look up. Marketing. Across the plywood in large, imperfect letters, she painted 3 words. Still here. Still baking. People stopped to take pictures. By noon, the photo had spread across the neighborhood. By evening, it was everywhere. A local reporter came by. Then another. Harper gave short answers at first, then better ones. No, she was not closing. Yes, she was shaken. No, she would not be bullied out of a business she had built with her own hands. When asked whether she believed the attack was connected to her family, Harper did not say Preston's name. She only said, "Some people are more comfortable when women stay where they are placed." Mara called it perfect. Roman said nothing about the interview, but that night he came to the shop after everyone left. The plywood still covered the window. The kitchen smelled of sugar and lemon zest. Harper was washing bowls, sleeves rolled up, hair falling from its knot. Roman stood in the doorway. "I found the man who hired it done." Harper turned off the water. Her heart began to beat harder. "Who a private security contractor connected to your father's company? Not directly enough for court without pressure, directly enough for me." Harper closed her eyes. A part of her had expected it. Another part of her, smaller and more foolish, had hoped even Preston had a line. "What did you do?" "Nothing." She opened her eyes. Roman looked almost offended by the word. "Nothing. I gave the information to Mara. She gave it to the journalist you spoke with." Harper stared at him. "You didn't handle it yourself?" His mouth tightened. "I wanted to. I know. I still want to. I know that too." He walked farther into the kitchen, stopping on the other side of the work table. "I have spent my life making sure no one gets a second chance to hurt what is mine." Harper's voice softened. "Roman." He looked at her. "You cannot call me that if you mean property." "I do not." "Then what do you mean?" The question hung between them, dangerous in a different way now. Roman looked at her like the truth cost him something. "I mean, I do not know how to care about someone without preparing for war." Harper's breath caught. There he was, not the myth, not the feared name. The man beneath the black suit still braced for a blow that had not come. She walked around the table slowly. "Who taught you that?" His eyes moved to the boarded window. "My father." Harper stopped. Roman's voice stayed even, but the words had weight. "He ran our house like men run prisons. Rules, punishments, silence. My mother learned not to ask for gentleness. I learned not to need it." Harper said nothing. He looked at her then. "When I was 15, I decided the room would never control me again. So I became the thing inside it people feared most." Outside, a siren passed somewhere far away, fading into the city. Harper stepped closer. "I don't need you to control the room." Roman looked down at her. "What do you need?" She answered honestly. "To stand in it with me." His face changed not much, but enough. Harper lifted her hand. There was flour on her wrist, a small streak from the last batch of dough. Roman noticed. His eyes dropped to it. He did not touch her. He asked, "May I?" The question was quiet. It moved through Harper more deeply than any command could have. "Yes." Roman took her wrist with careful fingers and wiped the flour away with his thumb. The touch was small, almost formal. Nothing like the violence people whispered into his name. Harper felt it everywhere. He released her hand. She caught his before it fell. Roman went still. Harper rose onto her toes and kissed him. For one breath he did not move. Then his hand came to the side of her face slow enough for her to pull away if she wanted. She did not. The kiss deepened, not rushed, not soft exactly, but controlled with the kind of restraint that made it more dangerous. He tasted like coffee and restraint and something darker she had no name for. When they broke apart, Harper kept her forehead near his. "I kissed you," she whispered. "I noticed." She almost laughed. Roman's thumb brushed once along her cheek. "Tell me to leave if you need me to." Harper closed her eyes. She had spent her whole life being pushed, arranged, instructed, corrected. Now a dangerous man stood in her kitchen and waited for permission. "Stay," she said. The next morning, the article about the contractor went live. It did not name Preston as the person who ordered the vandalism. But it named the company, the connection, the timing. It was enough. Calls came, messages came. Preston did not call. Celeste did. Harper did not answer. The shop had its busiest day yet. People came because of the story, but they stayed for the food. By afternoon, the case was empty again, and Tess had written "sold out" on a paper sign with a flourish that looked like victory. Near closing, the bell rang. Vanessa walked in. The room quieted in a strange, subtle way. Customers looked up, sensing history before anyone named it. Vanessa wore a camel coat, sunglasses, and the expression of a woman entering a place she had already decided to dislike. Harper stood behind the counter. Vanessa. Her sister removed her sunglasses. Her eyes looked tired. So this is it. Harper wiped her hands on a towel. This is it. Vanessa looked around. The cream walls, the glass case, the brass lights, the logo stamped on the boxes. Harper Quinn Atelier. It's smaller than I expected. It's bigger than where I started. Vanessa's mouth tightened. Tess shifted beside the espresso machine, ready for violence in the form of sarcasm. Harper gave her a look. Tess stayed quiet, but barely. Vanessa stepped closer to the counter. You've made a mess of everything. Harper did not answer. Dad's investors are asking questions. Grant's mother has stopped taking Mom's calls. People keep bringing up the wedding like it was some public trial. It felt like one. Vanessa's eyes flashed. You could have handled it privately. Harper looked at her sister for a long moment. I tried privately my whole life. That landed. Vanessa looked away first. For a few seconds, she seemed younger. Not innocent, never that, but less polished, less certain. Then the mask came back. You think applause means they care about you. Harper folded the towel and set it down. No, I think applause means they saw the work. Vanessa's gaze moved to the empty display case. And when they stopped looking, Harper felt the old wound stir. The fear Vanessa had always known how to touch. This time, she did not flinch. Then I keep working. Vanessa looked at her, and for one breath, something like grief opened between them. I needed that wedding to be perfect, Vanessa said quietly. Harper's voice softened without losing its edge. No, you needed everyone to believe you were. Vanessa's lips parted. No answer came. The bell rang behind her as a customer left, bringing in a breath of cold Boston air. Vanessa put her sunglasses back on. You've changed. Harper looked around the shop at Tess, pretending not to listen at the empty trays at the boarded window, still waiting for replacement glass at the door that opened into a life she had chosen. Yes, she said. Vanessa left without buying anything. Through the window, Harper watched her pause on the sidewalk. Vanessa looked back once, not at Harper, but at the sign above the door. Then she walked away. That night after Tess left and the ovens cooled, Harper sat alone at the consultation table with a cup of tea she had forgotten to drink. Her laptop chimed. An email appeared from a national bridal magazine. The subject line was simple. Feature request. Harper Quinn Atelier. Harper opened it. They wanted to photograph her work. They wanted an interview about artistry authorship and the wedding cake that had started rumors from Newport to Boston. Harper read the message twice. The shop was quiet around her. The plywood over the window held Tess's painted words in the streetlight. Still here, still baking. Harper placed both hands on the table, feeling the grain of the wood beneath her palms. Then she began to type her reply. The first version was too careful. Thank you for reaching out. I would be honored to discuss possible participation. She deleted it. The second version sounded like Mara. Please send your editorial direction, usage rights, publication schedule, and compensation details. She kept that part in a separate note because Mara would ask for it anyway. The third version came slower. Thank you for your interest in my work. I am open to a feature if the focus remains on craft labor and authorship. I will not participate in a story that turns private family harm into entertainment. The cake matters because work matters. Credit matters. Names matter. She read it twice. Her finger hovered above send. For years, Harper had been trained to make herself agreeable before she made herself honest. She knew how to soften a sentence until it could not offend anyone. She knew how to fold anger into politeness, how to tuck pain under a smile, how to make her own truth small enough for other people to step over. This time she sent the email as written. The shop remained quiet. Nothing exploded. No one appeared to punish her. The small sound of the sent message felt almost holy. Harper closed the laptop and looked toward the boarded window. Tess's painted words still faced the street. Still here, still baking. The next morning, Mara read the email over coffee and nodded once. Good. Harper waited. That's it. That is a complete sentence. I'm practicing restraint. Tess leaned over the counter. It sounds classy and terrifying. Very brand appropriate. Harper gave her a look. My brand is not terrifying. Tess picked up a tray of madeleines. Not to customers, maybe to rich people with secrets. Mara did not smile, but her eyes warmed. By noon, the magazine replied. They agreed to Harper's terms. No family gossip angle, no staged tears, no stolen cake headline. The profile would center on her work, her process, and the question of why women's labor was so often hidden behind prettier names. Harper stood in the kitchen with the message open on her phone. For a moment, she felt the old panic rise. Being seen was harder than being ignored. Ignored meant safe in a painful way. Seen meant judged, measured, possibly rejected. Seen meant people could decide she was not as talented as the story made her sound. Seen meant Vanessa could read every word. Preston could read every word. Celeste could set the magazine down on some polished table and say, Harper had always been dramatic. Roman found her like that, later that evening, standing over a tray of untouched sugar petals. You are thinking too loudly, he said from the doorway. Harper looked up. That sounds like something a man says when he does not know what I am thinking. I know exactly what you are thinking. Do you? You are wondering if the attention is a trap. She hated that he was right. Roman walked in his coat, still buttoned, dark hair damp from the rain. The new glass had not arrived yet, so the plywood gave the room a strange, closed feeling. He looked too large for the soft cream kitchen, too shadowed for a place that smelled of vanilla and lemon. Harper picked up a sugar petal and laid it on the drying tray. I spent so long wanting people to notice my work. Now they are noticing, and I feel like I'm standing in front of a train. Roman came to the other side of the work table. Then do not stand on the tracks. That is annoyingly simple. Most survival is. She glanced at him. Is that what this is? What survival? Roman looked around the kitchen at the trays, the stacked boxes, the notebooks, the mixer dusted with flour. No. This is living. You are less familiar with that. The words landed softly, but they did not bruise. Harper looked down at her hands. I named the cake for the magazine. Roman waited. The unhidden. Something moved across his face. Approval, maybe. Or pride. He did not turn it into a compliment. He had learned that some things needed room before praise touched them. Show me, he said. So she did. For the feature, Harper built a wedding cake that looked nothing like the one Vanessa had stolen. This one was tall, but not fragile. Ivory buttercream covered the tiers in clean, quiet lines. Sugar peonies climbed upward from the base, not falling down like decoration, but rising each bloom more open than the last. Thin gold threads moved between the flowers like light finding cracks in stone. At the top, she placed one unfinished blossom, not broken, opening. The magazine team arrived on a gray Thursday morning with cameras light, stands, garment bags, and voices that filled the shop before the sun had fully reached the windows. Tess wore her cleanest apron and tried to act unimpressed. Mara stood near the back with a clipboard ready to destroy anyone who violated the agreement. Nico waited outside with coffee and an expression that made delivery drivers take the long way around him. Roman did not come in. Harper noticed his car across the street, parked near the corner. He sat inside, visible only when the light hit the windshield. Not intruding, not claiming, waiting to be invited. The photographer, a woman named Claire, circled the cake in silence. Then she lowered her camera. "Who taught you to make flowers like that?" Harper looked at the cake. No one. Claire waited. Harper touched the edge of the table, not the cake. "I taught myself because real flowers die. Sugar flowers can outlast the room that underestimated them." The writer glanced up from her notes. Harper almost apologized for sounding too intense. She did not. The interview lasted 3 hours. They asked about technique training, ingredients, architecture, wedding culture, invisible labor, and what it meant to put her own name on the door. At one point, the writer asked, "Do you consider the Newport wedding the beginning of your career?" Harper looked toward the front window. Roman's car was still there. "No," she said. "It was the last time I let someone else narrate it." Mara's pen paused. Tess looked down quickly, pretending to adjust a box. Claire took the picture at that exact second. The photograph ran 2 weeks later. Harper stood beside the unhidden in her cream apron hair pinned loosely, hands resting on the work table. She was not smiling for comfort. She was not trying to look sweeter than the story. Her gaze met the camera directly. The headline read, "Harper Quinn builds cakes that refuse to disappear." The article changed everything. Orders doubled first, then tripled. Brides called. Event planners emailed. A hotel in Manhattan requested a tasting. A Boston museum wanted a dessert installation for a gala. Culinary students began showing up just to look through the window. Sometimes Harper caught young women staring at the sign above the door as if it had given them permission to want something. Preston did not call. Celeste did. Harper did not answer. Then, on a Tuesday morning before opening, Celeste came in person. The bell rang while Harper was arranging pear tarts in the display case. She looked up and saw her mother standing on the other side of the room wrapped in a pale blue coat, her hair smooth, her face carefully composed. For a second, the shop disappeared. Harper was a child again, waiting to be corrected. Then Tess emerged from the kitchen carrying a tray. She saw Celeste and stopped. "You want me to stay?" Tess asked quietly. Harper shook her head. "It's okay." Tess did not move. Harper gave her a softer look. "Really?" Tess went back into the kitchen, but Harper knew she stayed close. Celeste looked around the shop. "It's lovely." Harper placed the last tart in the case. "Thank you." The words felt formal. Two strangers at a charity lunch. Celeste approached the counter, gloved hands folded around her purse. "I read the article. I assumed. It was very well written." Harper closed the display case. "Did you come here to review the journalism?" Celeste's mouth tightened. There she was. The mother Harper knew. The woman who disliked a tone more than a wound. Then Celeste looked down. "No." Harper waited. Celeste took a breath. "Your father is under a great deal of pressure." Harper wiped a crumb from the counter. "I'm sure. People have been unkind." Harper looked up. To him, Celeste's eyes sharpened, then softened with visible effort. "To all of us." Harper laughed once under her breath. Celeste flinched as if the sound had struck her. "You think this is funny? No. I think it is familiar. I was hurt, and you called it inconvenient. He is embarrassed, and you call it unkind." Celeste's face drained slightly. For a moment, neither woman spoke. Steam hissed from the espresso machine in the back room. Outside, a delivery truck rumbled past, shaking the front window. Celeste's voice lowered. I thought I was preparing you. Harper stared at her. For what? The world. Celeste swallowed. It is not gentle with women who want too much. Harper walked around the counter slowly. You did not teach me to survive the world. You taught me to survive this family. Celeste looked away. For the first time, Harper could remember her mother seemed smaller than the room she occupied. I made mistakes, Celeste said. The sentence was so plain it almost slipped past Harper's defenses. She crossed her arms. Celeste looked at her again. I do not know how to be what you want me to be. Harper felt the ache of that. The child in her leaned forward, hungry for even a poor apology. The woman she had become stayed still. I don't need you to be what I want, Harper said. I need you to tell the truth. Celeste's eyes shone. After a long silence, she whispered, I let them make you smaller because it was easier than confronting what that made me. Harper inhaled slowly. There it was. Not enough to repair years. Not enough to erase the dress, the wedding, the apartment, the million tiny corrections that had trained her body to shrink. But it was something real. Harper nodded once. I hear you. Celeste waited hope flickering across her face. Harper did not offer more. Her mother understood. It hurt her. Harper let it. Celeste left without buying anything. Harper stood alone for a moment after the bells stopped moving. Then Tess appeared in the kitchen doorway. You okay? Harper looked at the door. I think so. Tess held up a tray. I saved you the ugly croissant. Harper turned. The what? The one that looks emotionally complicated. Harper laughed. It came out clean. Vanessa came after closing 3 days later. No sunglasses this time. No perfect coat. Just jeans, a dark sweater, and a face that looked tired without makeup holding it in place. Harper was wiping down the consultation table when the bell rang. She looked up. Vanessa stood inside the door with both hands at her sides as if she did not know what to do with them. We're closed. I know. Harper set the cloth down. The sisters looked at each other across the small room. For most of their lives, Vanessa had known where to stand, so the light found her first. Now, under the soft brass lamps of Harper's shop, she seemed exposed. I won't stay long, Vanessa said. Harper did not answer. Vanessa stepped closer and placed a small ivory card on the table. Harper recognized it. One of her business cards. The edge was bent. The surface was worn from being touched. I kept it, Vanessa said. Why Vanessa looked at the card instead of Harper? At first to hate it. The honesty was so unexpected Harper almost smiled. Vanessa continued. Then I kept it because I didn't know what else to do with the fact that you didn't fail. Harper's chest tightened. Vanessa looked up. I waited for you to come back. I know. I told myself you would. That Roman Calder would get bored. That the shop would close. That people would stop caring. That you would realize you needed us. Harper's voice was quiet. I did need you. Vanessa looked down. You needed a sister. I liked having someone below me. The sentence was ugly. It was also true. Harper sat slowly at the consultation table. Vanessa remained standing. I stole the cake because I wanted the beauty without admitting it came from you, Vanessa said. And because if people knew you made it, they might have looked at you differently. Harper's fingers pressed into her palm beneath the table. You mean they might have looked at me? Vanessa nodded. Tears slipped down her face, but she did not make them pretty. I was jealous of you. Harper almost laughed. It came out as a breath. Of me? Yes. The answer was immediate, bitter, embarrassed. You had something that was yours. I had mirrors. I had rooms full of people telling me I was perfect, and all I could think was that if they stopped looking, there would be nothing left. Harper looked at her sister for a long time. Anger was still there. So was grief. So was the memory of Vanessa's voice under the wedding lights thanking a place in Paris that did not exist. "I don't know how to forgive you yet," Harper said. Vanessa nodded, crying harder now. "I know. I might not." "I know that too." For once, Vanessa did not argue with reality. Harper stood and walked behind the counter. She took a small white box, placed 2 pastries inside, and tied it with black ribbon. Vanessa watched her. Harper held out the box. Vanessa took it like it was breakable. "This is not forgiveness," Harper said. Vanessa nodded again. "What is it?" Harper looked at the card on the table. A receipt. Vanessa laughed through her tears. It was small and strange and almost like being young before all the sharpness learned their names. After Vanessa left, Harper found Roman outside beneath the street lamp. He had not come in. He stood with his hands in his coat pockets watching the sidewalk where Vanessa had disappeared. Harper joined him. "You knew she was here?" "Yes." "You didn't interrupt?" "No." She looked at him. The night air smelled of rain bread and the sea. Roman's eyes stayed on hers. "You asked me to stand in the room with you, not in front of you." Harper felt warmth move through her chest. "You are learning. Painfully." She smiled. "That sounds healthy. It sounds irritating." Harper laughed, and Roman watched her as if the sound was worth more than anything he owned. Months passed. The atelier grew into itself. The broken window became new glass. Tess became indispensable. Mara negotiated contracts with the calm violence of a woman who had never needed a weapon. Nico became the unofficial judge of almond cookies. Customers learned to arrive early. Brides booked months ahead. Harper hired 2 assistants, then 3. Her hands remained tired. Her heart did not. One evening, a bride came in with her mother for a consultation. The young woman sat across from Harper, twisting her engagement ring around her finger. "It doesn't have to be special," the bride said. "Really? I don't want to be difficult." Harper opened her sketchbook. She knew that voice. She had lived in that voice. She slid the pencil across the table. "Tell me what you actually want." The bride looked at her. Then slowly she began to speak. Later that night, Harper locked the shop and found Roman waiting by the curb. No black entourage, no performance. Just him leaning against the car coat collar turned up against the cold. "You're late," he said. "You're waiting." "I am." Harper walked to him. "You could have come in." "I know. Why didn't you?" His eyes moved over her face. "Because you were working." She stepped closer. The streetlight turned his dark hair silver at the edges. "I got a commission today," she said. "Another one. A big one. Boston Harbor Hotel. 400 guests. Full credit on the event program. My name on the contract. My name on the menu." Roman's expression changed in that small, devastating way of his. "There she is." Harper tilted her head. "Who the woman I saw at the gala before she knew she was allowed to stand upright." The words should have hurt. They did not. Because now they belonged to the past. Harper touched the front of his coat. "I love you." Roman went still. The city seemed to quiet around them. His voice, when it came, was low. "Harper, you don't have to say it back because I said it first. I am not hesitating because I do not feel it." She looked up at him. "Then why?" "Because when I say it, I need you to understand what kind of man is saying it." She held his gaze. "I do." Roman's hand came to her cheek, careful as the first time. "I loved you before you believed you were worth defending." Harper's eyes burned. "I loved you after you learned I could defend myself." His mouth curved. Then he kissed her beneath the street lamp slowly, with one hand at her face and the other at her waist, holding her like something chosen, not taken. The city moved around them. Cars passed. People laughed down the block. Somewhere nearby, church bells marked the hour. Harper did not disappear into the kiss. She stood inside it fully. A year after Vanessa's wedding, Harper delivered a wedding cake to a ballroom overlooking Boston Harbor. The cake was 5 tiers, ivory and gold, with sugar flowers opening upward from the base. Not the unhidden. Not a copy, but a cousin of it. Something strong, something luminous. The event coordinator checked the paperwork. Cake artist Harper Quinn. Harper Quinn Atelier. Harper heard her name spoken clearly in the room. No lie followed it. No one corrected it. No one laughed. During the reception, the bride took the microphone. Before thanking the florist or the band, she turned toward Harper. "I want to thank Harper Quinn," she said, her voice full and bright. "She made the cake I dreamed of before I knew how to describe it." The room applauded. Harper stood near the service entrance out of old habit. Then she stepped forward. Not far, just enough to be seen. Across the ballroom, Roman watched from beside a marble column. He lifted his glass slightly. Harper smiled. This time she did not look away first. Later, when the cake was cut and the plates were cleared, Harper walked out onto the harbor terrace. The night wind lifted her hair. The water below carried the city lights in long golden lines. Roman joined her without speaking. For a while they stood together. Then he asked, "Still want to disappear?" Harper looked through the glass doors at the ballroom at the guests eating cake with her name written on the menu, at the staff moving around a creation no one had stolen. "No," she said. The answer was simple. It felt earned. In the months that followed, the Quinn name changed shape. To some people it still meant Preston's empire, his money, his fall from unquestioned respect. To others it meant Vanessa's wedding scandal, whispered less often, now softened by time and newer gossip. But in Boston, in the North End, on a cream-colored box tied with black ribbon, Quinn meant something else. It meant almond and cherry. It meant sugar flowers that looked alive. It meant a woman who learned to put her name on the door and keep it there. One morning Harper arrived before sunrise and found Tess already inside, music playing softly while she piped buttercream onto a tray of cupcakes. "You're early," Harper said. Tess glanced over. "You're late. It's 5:30. "Exactly. Growth." Harper laughed and hung up her coat. The ovens warmed. Coffee brewed. The city woke outside the glass. Soon there would be customers at the door, consultations on the calendar, invoices to check flowers, to sculpt cakes, to stack calls to return. Work. Real work. Hers. Harper moved to the front window and wiped a faint smudge from the glass. Her reflection looked back at her. Not the girl in the silver dress. Not the sister standing behind flowers. Not the daughter waiting for permission. Just Harper. Behind her, the kitchen filled with light. Outside, Roman's car pulled to the curb. He stepped out with 2 coffees and waited until she saw him before reaching for the door. Harper unlocked it. The bell rang. And this time, when the room opened around her, no part of her tried to shrink.